Welcome to the Blabber Show Halloween Special Extravaganza episode. Tonight's special guest is Dustin Pari of Ghost Hunters. It's going to be incredibly frightening. Or
funny or entertaining or enlightening, inspiring. I think any one of those things. Either way, you're not going to want to miss this show. Let's do this.
Blabberbrains.
And welcome, boys and girls, to the scary Halloween episode of Blabber Show. Woo! I am your host, Michael Kadrie, and the Joker over there in the space cadet outfit, because he's such a space cadet, is the big M, Mark Anthony. What's happening?
Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3.
Houston, we have a problem.
I'm doing just fine over here.
Yeah, you are the space cadet of all space cadets, so that's perfect costume for you. Or you're an egghead, one or the other, and you needed to have something to cover it up.
It's got a lot of protection. I think they put all this up here like this in case you can't get out. I can't get out of the spaceship and the doors jam. I could just go in like this and ram it.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you better hope that some giant bird doesn't land on your head, mistaking it for an egg and trying to hatch it.
There's a lot of padding in there. It'd take a lot of digging for it to get down to my skull.
Yeah, well, still, those talons, when they sink in there, you're a done deal. Anyways, so how you been? You're a busy guy playing out, playing some acoustic shows. We'll have to tease some of those, let people know where you're playing at here coming up towards the end of our episode here, and getting a lot of practice in.
I just kind of put together what I'm going to play, run through it once, and then I show up and I play.
You showcasing any of the new material you're working on?
Not really. I do about I think it's seven of my own songs, 5 off my EP, and 3 other ones. And I pretty much play a mix of my version of well-known Southern rock, classic rock, and some newer country. I do some songs
and the best of Juice Newton, right?
What was that?
I said, and the best of Juice Newton. You
I don't do any Juice Newton. I can't hit a lot of her range anymore as I've gotten older. But I do all kind of stuff that you wouldn't expect that you would do on an acoustic guitar. Like somebody challenged me to come up with a acoustic version of Paranoid and by Sabbath, and I do it, and it's almost got a little bit of a quick Americana feel to it. And then I do stuff like you wouldn't expect on an acoustic guitar, like Light My Fire from the Doors. I do a lot of the things that you want in well-known songs that everybody knows, but nobody, I've never heard anybody do Little Red Corvette on an acoustic guitar. I do stuff like that. And it seems to go over. I mean, so far, everywhere I played, usually when I hear somebody acoustic playing, all you hear is clanging and people talking. And then when they're done playing, you might have one like this, or people keep going. People are actually, applauding and stuff like that. So it hasn't been as like you're just by yourself, sort of running through songs. Like if there's nobody around, it's gone fairly well. So far I could sing, and I come out with good equipment. Everything's nice and crystal clear sounding, and the sound quality is probably much better than what other acoustic people are doing.
Well, so you're coming up. We got Halloween coming up here, so maybe you need to work in some sort of acoustic version of like the Munsters theme song or something. Would be kind of cool,
Yeah, you know what? When I'm playing next week, not this upcoming weekend, but the following weekend out in Greensburg, I probably should go like this.
Yeah, there you
put
go.
this on And it'd be really cool if I could find a small microphone, so I didn't even have a microphone in front of me, and have people think it's actually coming from this. You know? But it's like a microphone underneath there.
That's up by your eye. I mean, people think you're singing out of your eye.
Well, I mean, it's foam. There's not much, but it'd be funny because if I could tap it, you'd hear this tapping coming through the mic. I mean, they have those headless mics and stuff like that, but I don't like using them. And the sound quality, you lose a lot of bottom end on them,
right?
And stuff like that. But yeah, this might be something I should do next weekend when I'm out at Major Stokes out in Greensburg.
Well, I'm not sure when this episode's coming out, so we're recording it early. But we'll
it's actually Saturday. Yeah, it would be Saturday October 28th.
Okay.
Greensburg, Pennsylvania.
This episode will be out before then, so.
Yeah, from 7 to 9 p.m., which is nice. It's a nice 2-hour, just a nice 2-hour gig on a Saturday night. The food's fantastic out there. It's a small place. I mean, they have a really nice outside thing going. In the summer, obviously, we're going to be past that now. I doubt that the weather will be warm in 2 weeks at night, but they actually have their own garden in the back, and they do everything they can to source as much local ingredients into their food.
Right.
So, yeah, it's a cool little place, and the food's excellent. So,
why don't you do the original version of Light My Fire, since the original version was acoustic?
Well, it's pretty close to. It's almost like taking the Doors version, which it's actually their song. And then Julio Iglesias, or was it him? The blind
José Feliciano. I thought he's the one. I thought he's the one that wrote it.
No, he put that out a year or two later.
I had it backwards.
And
yeah.
And so it's probably in between. I sing like Jim Morrison. I could do all his screams and stuff like that. So I'm singing it definitely closer to a Jim Morrison type version. But I incorporate some of the stuff that he did with his acoustic version of it, because the chording's a little different than the actual chords for if you were playing along to the Doors version of it. So it sort of sits in the middle. People seem to like it, and I do it at the end usually of my first set.
Yeah, but you actually have probably more in common with José Feliciano, because you're like, he's blind, you're kind of blind. He's short, you're short. He plays acoustic, you play acoustic. You like Chico and the Man. He sang the Chico Man theme song. So you got a lot more in common with him.
Maybe. I mean, I could sure see a hell of a lot better than he can. I got problems with one eye, but my one bad eye is still. I could at least get around. I couldn't drive or anything like that, but he might not even know how short he is. That I'm aware of.
Well, does he know what tall is? How can he gauge it? I
don't know, but when I thought, I'm going to go look at his version of the song. And when I did that, and I started looking at some of his videos, him doing it live, and he's hilarious. I mean, he makes fun of his lack of vision, and he throws some jokes in there. He's pretty entertaining back in the day. I mean, I'm assuming he's still alive now.
I think he is. Don't quote me on that, but I think he is still alive. I don't know if he's still performing, because he's got to be pretty old by now. But I think he is. I think he's still. It's the old dead, or is he dead or Canadian? Remember that from Remote Control on MTV, the game show? They would have a category called Dead or Canadian. So we got it's José Feliciano, dead or Canadian? Well, he sure is heck not Canadian, right? Although there are a lot of Mexican people up in Canada, I don't think he's Canadian, but I also don't think he's dead. So
yeah, I think he's still alive. He's a really good Spanish flamenco guitar player. I just thought
about that because you you said you're playing like an Americana version of Black Sabbath. So I just thought, hey, what's more Americana than José Feliciano?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what most people say.
Right. Anyways, hey, speaking of some other scary news that just came out since it's Halloween, of course, it's going to be a little bit old news by the time this comes out. But did you hear Joran van der Sloot finally admitted to killing Natalee Holloway? Everybody knew it. I mean, it was kind of like anticlimactic because it'd be like OJ admitting that he killed Ron and Nicole, but he did it. The family now has closure. He's gonna be punished for it in some way. I guess he's gonna be. He's already in jail, but so I guess he figured he's got nothing to lose. But he said, yeah, he butchered her up and hid her away where no one was going to find her and stuff like that. Meanwhile, like the whole world knew he did it, but the fact that he finally just confessed to it, I think, kind of brings some closure to it after all these years. So, it's not going to bring her back for the family, but the family is at least, they know definitively now that he did it.
Do you think, Mike, that he's just kind of like, I'm probably going to be getting to the end here soon. I'm going to try to do what I can now when my time goes here to maybe I have a shot of not rotting in hell.
Who knows? I mean, you never know what's in a person's head or what their beliefs are, what they say and what they have in their heart are two different things. There was some speculation that his dad actually did it or helped cover it up. And if that's the case, maybe he's just taking the fall for him because he knows his life isn't going anywhere. But I have a feeling that he's the one that did it. His dad maybe helped cover it up. His dad had to know. He just had to know. That's just, if you follow the story and you knew everything that was going on, there's no way his dad didn't know. But it brings closure because there was also that story that she might have been, sold into sex slavery over in Venezuela and she got put on a boat over to there. And so she could still be alive, but still, captured somewhere, but at least so I think, at least this brings some closure, definitively, as long as he's telling the truth. I mean, why would he lie about something like this? And as far as if he's trying to clear his soul and his conscience and get right with God, I mean, he didn't say as much in his testimony, but you never know. I mean, what goes on in a person's head or heart is between them and God, and God will be the judge of all that stuff, and not us. We're not going to be able to condemn him, right, after he leaves this world. So we'll see. I guess when I get on the other side, I'll let you know. I'll probably get there before you. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know why I said that. We're the same.
Well, Houdini was supposed to have all these things that he was going to do, and either he didn't get to where he thought he was going, or they're not allowing him to do it. You can't. Sorry, you can't do that.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. We don't know what the limitations are. I mean, are the people? Because here's an interesting thing, right? A lot of people in the paranormal industry, they're investigators, whatever, even if like they're mediums or such, a lot of them are Christians. So wouldn't you think that if they're legit, that being in the paranormal investigative industry or the medium industry, that the afterlife and heaven and stuff like that would more confirm your Christianity? And I never heard of anybody falling away and said, well, because of what I do, I have been definitive proof. And I can't believe in that but there's so many of them are still Christians. So one of two things I think is at play here. The spirits, like if you watch things like Ghost Hunters or Ghost Adventures or anything like that, one of my favorites, Ghost Brothers. I love those guys. But when they contact people, and they're able to have audio of the contact and stuff like that, is it possible those people are in purgatory or limbo or whatever you want to call it. Like they're not in hell, but they're not in heaven. And that's why they're able to communicate. But like Harry Houdini said, like he's trying to communicate with his wife. And, you know, maybe when you've reached your ultimate destination of heaven, like there's no way to communicate in that way, shape, or form. I don't know. I mean, like you can only speculate and hypothesize of what it's going to be like until you get there, right? So, but I think it's interesting that I've noticed that a lot of people in the paranormal industry are Christians. So I would think that they would probably have something have shown up to them that says, you know, something to not still believe in Christ or God or whatever, but instead they remain in their faith. But the interesting thing with the way they communicate and stuff with the dead, and I can't. There's so many people that just don't believe that, right? Like I feel like, I mean, I know because my own personal experience with stuff like that, that there has to be at the bare minimum. People think you just die and there's nothing else. There's energy, right? Our bodies are energy, our beings are energy, our souls are energy. The energy goes on. It just doesn't, the flame doesn't die out. And I think there's definitive proof on that. Like I said, it's up to the person's individual spirituality or their faith to say, okay, is there heaven? Is there God? All that other stuff, which I believe. But the people that just say that, you know, we die and there's just nothing, first of all, I think that's sad that they believe that. Second of all, you know, if they're looking for definitive proof on it, I think there is plenty of proof that there is something after this life. I mean, what's your thoughts?
I don't know. I jump around and think about a lot of things, and I have some different views that we don't, you know, when it comes to religion and stuff like that. I just think that nobody knows the answer, and whoever may have thought what the answers were, say when back in the biblical days, that maybe something has changed. Maybe some people are saying, why isn't God coming down and doing this or doing that? Who knows what's going on? Maybe don't have the ability to do that for whatever reason. You just don't know. And I don't know. I haven't really seen, I've heard people I know, including my cousin and his wife in the house that they own, some of the things that they dealt with they found out there, you know, after the fact that they were having some things go on upstairs in this, I guess it would be considered the attic, their house. And this woman who was supposedly a smoker, there's times in the morning they could smell strong cigarette smoke and neither one of them smoked. Right. And just some interesting things that have gone on. You know, I haven't myself had witnessed that stuff. So I don't know how I feel. I mean, I go back and forth on things, and maybe there are situations where if we are going to an afterlife, whether that's going up to heaven or going down below or wherever, who knows, maybe there's just times that things get, you know, somebody kind of gets stuck in the process of it. You know what I mean? And that's why there's people lurking around, or these, you know, or that they think are actually somebody. You hear stories about, you know, somebody who lived on this premises. You find out if, you know, some homeowner has this weird things going on, and then they do some research and they find out, you know, something dramatic's happened in that house that sort of relates to what they see and hear. You know, it's pretty fascinating. Maybe there's, like I said, maybe there's just times when your spirit leaves here and it somehow just gets stuck in limbo. You know, maybe that things like that happen, and that's the reason why. I mean, I don't know. I told you this, Mike. I think the greatest chances we have, I think when we leave this world, we're going to all be Jewish. You know, that's my thoughts, you know. I mean, seriously, it's like, I think there's a shot that when we pass away, we find out we're Jewish, and and all of a sudden somebody's coming up to you and saying shalom.
Well, I mean, Jesus was Jewish. So
yeah, and so that's what I mean. And even thinking about that, you just, I don't know, man. I go back and forth on everything. I just think there's a lot of stuff that you can't change in this world, and sometimes bad things happen because that's just what happens. And maybe he doesn't have that type of control to change anything or ability.
Well, I
Who
think he
knows
does.
what's
I think
happened?
he does. I don't think personally. I don't think God interferes because of free will. And I think the times that he may interject is if it doesn't go against his will for somebody. Um, for sake of argument, when you're praying for somebody, whatever, maybe that person was intended to live anyways, and but maybe not. Let's say for the sake of they had a sickness, and they weren't meant to die anyways. They were going to get through that, but their life, maybe they got through it quicker or easier or something like that. So it didn't change the path of that person that they're supposed to be on. So maybe God answered some prayers there. I think overall, there's evil in this world because people have a tendency to be evil, and they don't they're removed from God. They don't believe in God. They don't love God. So there's evil in the world, and God's not going to stop that because that's interfering with the free will of people. He didn't create us to, control us like puppets. He controlled us to basically place us here so that we can return our love to him. And then that's our free choice. And those that aren't loving him are doing heinous acts. I mean, they're terrorists blowing people up, or shooting people, or killing people, or robbing them, or whatever. God's not going to interfere and stop that because that's, that's just not, that takes away the free will, But there's we don't want to get too all theological on this whole matter, but and again, I'm not saying that I'm right or that there's any one right way. I just personally believe when people say, well, if there's a God, why is there evil in the world? There's evil in the world because, first of all, how are you going to juxtapose good without evil? God is all love. And if everybody was just a mind-numb robot being controlled by God, then there would be no evil. But we're not. We're free to do what we want to do, and people have evil tendencies in them. So, and without the evil, how do you know what good is, or how do you know what evil is without the good, and vice versa? So, I don't know. That's why I think that there's heinous acts that go on constantly, especially like over in Israel right now. That's just not something he's never stepped in and interjected, and I don't see him starting now.
Well, I've spent an awful lot of time trying to figure it all out, and I got nothing.
Right.
I got.
Well, you're never gonna.
I got nothing. I'll still probably until the day I die try to figure this out and figure that out, and you just, and you try to come up with reasoning and stuff like that. And most of the time, I have nothing. That's all I've ever done with them.
A lot of the times, that's to satisfy your own, curiosity or whatever. And a lot of people say, well, we'll know for sure when we die. Well, maybe you won't. All your questions will be answered when you die. Well, maybe they won't, because maybe you won't care. Maybe you're just in the presence of God, you're in heaven, and you don't care about those questions anymore. Who knows? Or maybe they do all get answered. We don't know. One day we'll find out. The people that say definitively there is nothing after life, and when I die, I'm buried in the ground, there's nothing else after, there is no God, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, look, one of two things is going to happen. Either you're right or I'm right. And if you're right, nobody's going to know. If I'm right, we're all going to know. So, that's the way I look at it. So one day we will find out the truth, and we probably won't be able to report back here. We're not going to come knocking on. Hey, I got the answers for you. I just went through it. Here's the situation. That'd be nice if you could do that, but I don't think that's going to happen. It hasn't happened yet, anyways.
I'm just wondering. Our guest that we get the interview today, I saw something by him where he was saying, these apparitions or ghosts or whatever, he tends to see that they're really tall or they're really short. And I'm wondering, being that I'm short, if I have a greater chance of coming back and floating around and spooking people than the average person that's 5'10" or 5'11. Do I have a greater chance of, going around, and torturing somebody in my house after I'm not here anymore, coming back to my house on James Street, and then while they're sleeping upstairs, be down in in the basement playing a guitar or something, having them wonder, where's this music keep coming from? And I just leave a guitar pick sitting there, but no guitar, and they're asking each other, or whoever lives there, is that your guitar? What's a guitar pick doing here? Why? We heard music playing last night and we couldn't figure out what that was. Well, sorry guys, I'm short, and I had a higher risk for coming back and haunting you guys. Sorry.
I mean, it's like a ride at amusement parks. You've got to be as tall as Mickey Mouse to ride this ride, and you got to be this tall to get into heaven. And those of you who can't, well, you're not going to hell, but you can't get in there, so just go float around somewhere else. So,
like it's a lottery. Like, well, your number's been pulled up. You got to go back and start bothering the people in the house that you owned for the last 30 years. Okay,
well, that wouldn't make sense because it's the spiritual realm.
I'll take care.
There's no physical space in the spiritual realm. It's all like it's not like there's no time and space, right? So it's not like, oh, it's too crowded here. We got to make room for more people. But let's talk about something else that's scary right now. The Steelers, as we like to talk about. What's your there's some things floating around out there, rumors, and of course they're just rumors. I don't hold them credible in any way, shape, or form. But one of the rumors that I kind of liked was the fact that Byron Leftwich contacted the Steelers to see if they would be interested in bringing him on to the staff to help out. He wasn't necessarily bidding for the OC job, but I could see him do that. But could actually see him, eventually taking over for Matt Canada, but maybe even taking over for Tomlin one day. But what's your thoughts about that rumor?
Oh no, there's been some, and then there's another one. I think these people just put stuff out there to get things talking. That it's possible that Ben Roethlisberger might return to help and be out of the coaching staff. I mean, I don't know. Leftwich, that's a realistic scenario. Somebody who played it. Somebody who played at Roethlisberger's level, I can't imagine him wanting to put the time commitment in that these coaches have. He probably had enough of meetings about meetings and stuff like that, and all the over meetings and over watching this and that as an NFL player.
But he's already coaching. Ben's already coaching like junior football right now.
Yeah, but that's not taking up 80 hours a week like in the NFL. That's people are living and breathing it all season. True. I just don't see Roethlisberger. I don't see Roethlisberger doing it. Working with kids and high school kids, you can't work with them around the clock and watch film. Same with like in college. You only have so much time you're allotted to spend. That's why I'd be shocked if Deion Sanders would ever come into the pros, because it's just going to be a bigger coaching commitment than it is at a scholastic level. Leftwich, I don't know. I brought that up to you before. Like, I'm wondering, if they, if someday we might not end up talking with him and other teams too, being a head coach, because it seems that way. But then you hear bad things about, and I don't keep up with what his, how successful he's been where he's at, but didn't he get cut because he was ineffective as an offensive coordinator?
I don't know. I mean, he was their offensive coordinator when they won the Super Bowl with Brady. So,
I think that's why he's out there now. I thought he was let go from, what was it, Miami or somebody last year?
I don't know, but I don't know the whole backstory. But he certainly has qualifications. Like I said, he led the Buccaneers to a Super Bowl with Tom Brady. And that's, if he was a horrible offensive coordinator, even Brady wouldn't be able to overcome that. I mean, Brady can't go out there. He's not Terry Bradshaw. Terry Bradshaw called a lot of his own plays, but didn't call every play. And, Brady can't go out there and be the offensive coordinator and the quarterback at the same time. So you have to give credit to that to somebody. And I guess you'd have to give that to Leftwich. Leftwich was already on the coaching staff here at Pittsburgh at one point in time for a couple of years. So there's a tie there. I think he is eventually going to be a head coach somewhere at some team. I think he's a very intelligent guy, a bright guy. I just see this as even there's talk, even from Tomlin's side about how much longer he's got with the Steelers and stuff like that. So why not bring in somebody like a Leftwich when you're having problems at offensive coordinator anyways? Bring him in there to groom him to take over for Tomlin whenever either Tomlin decides to leave or the Steelers decide to get rid of him or whatever. To me, that just makes the most sense. Why would you let this guy get away when supposedly, according to the reports out there, is he's actually reaching out and contacting the Steelers? They're not contacting him. So he wants to be here. So why not at least entertain that thought anyways?
Did you see the one that was going around just in the last week that Gruden supposedly is interested? And I don't buy that.
That was just somebody putting two and two together because him and Tomlin are really good friends and he's available and stuff. I don't think that thing had any merit whatsoever to it. I think it was just a rumor. I think it was just something thrown out there to get people talking. I mean, much like there's people talking right now about how Mason Rudolph could get traded to the Vikings for the quarterback. I know the quarterback's name. I even have him on my fantasy team. Holy crap, I'm having a brain fart. But I think that's just someone trying to make up news to try to get people to talk. I don't think there's any merit to that either. So, people just like to make up stuff just to have people circulate it and see how people share it. And then if something does come true, they're like, oh, I'm the one who came up with that first. I'm the one who broke that story or whatever. I mean, it's no different than regular news in sports. People try to guess at what's going on. And then if it does happen, they could say, well, I broke the story first because, look back, I'm the one who first talked about that, blah, blah, blah. Who cares? Get over yourself.
Yeah, Gruden would be the farthest stretch. Everybody is saying, when I was looking through some of the threads on Facebook, and people were saying, no, that's the way for him to get his foot back in the door, in the NFL and stuff like that. I just don't see him as a guy who's had multiple positions, 3 positions. I mean, he was at the Raiders twice. Right. And in Tampa, I just don't see that guy now being off for a while, coming back as an assistant coach somewhere. I don't see that either. And then the biggest thing on top of it, I don't see Tomlin having somebody come in who might be a bigger buzz and to talk about than him. I don't
or take the spotlight away or something like that because he's a big mouth.
I don't see that. I just don't see that either. Right. And I don't know. So they need to make it change. I just think, well, look what's going on up in New England with Belichick. They're talking about him maybe on his way out too. I think, he had a hell of a run. Let's face it, Tom Brady had a lot to do with the success. Of course, they had better players around them too than they have up there right now. I just think you run your course after a while. Right. I think you just run your course after a while and you're just, it's time to hang it up. And, I'm surprised he's still coaching. Frankly, I would have gone a year without Brady and probably retired. Look at all the Super Bowls you went to. You got a bunch of rings. Might as well go out looking good. Because one thing that happens is it seems to me anyhow, is if you did an awful lot of good, but if you stick around as things get bad too long, people start to forget those bits and pieces of good. Just like with Favre, he's retired, then he's coming back, then he retires, then he's coming back. Then and then they said, Green Bay kicks him off. Then he goes to Jets. Now he's going to retire. Now he goes, and after a while, he's just, he's looked at as a putz.
Right.
And, even with the other things that went on afterwards, when, you could go into, but, if people started forgetting about all the great, because, and I think it's going to go Belichick, if he sticks around too long with how things are going, I just think it's on a lot of people's minds, it takes away everything and it puts it more on Brady as being the big chief, Now
Right.
it's look at happen, Brady leaves and wins the Super Bowl the next year, and and all it's been is a slow decline with Belichick, There's a lot of people now saying that. You see, it was Brady. It was Brady. Brady knew more than Belichick. Belichick's back to being when he coached the
Browns.
the Browns, going back to being mediocre.
Yeah, I just think that it's never just one thing, right? It's never just the coach. It's never just the quarterback. It's never just the running back. It's a combination of everything that has to work right in order to have that perfect storm to put a team together to win the Super Bowl and stuff. And it's not even just the coach and the quarterback. Like, it wasn't just Belichick and Brady. It was the supporting cast around him as well. It was having a good defense. I'm not saying wasn't a big part of it. The cheating was a big part of it too. So how do you factor that in? But you've got to have people that's willing to execute your cheating plans and do it right in order to succeed with that. But so that's why I think, like, even you look at Chuck Noll, after he lost his primo players from the dynasty era of the Super Bowl era Steelers, was it that Chuck didn't know how to coach anymore, or that he just didn't have the players that he used to have? I think it was a little bit of both. I think he was getting old. The game was kind of passing him by, and he didn't have the players. I think Belichick is the same way. I think the game is passing Belichick by. He's old, and he doesn't have the players that he used to have anymore. So it's got to be a combination of the two.
Well, Noel had a lot of, I think what hurt Noel, he stuck with Mark Malone. He seemed to just be loyal to players that he shouldn't have been loyal to. Same with Bubby Brister. And it just seems like, I think the biggest thing that hurt him was the fact that once you started getting in the 80s, more money is being generated by the NFL, which means that the salaries went up everywhere. And it wasn't until Cowher came here, a couple of years after Cowher was here, where they actually were spending the same amount of money as other teams were. Because I remember that first playoff game with Cowher, when we got our asses kicked here. We were the number 1 seed by Buffalo. Of course, we were, I think, 11-5, and we only played 5 teams with winning records that season, and then we lost all 5 games. But the thing was, though, there was a thing on TV, and I think they were talking about the salary. Can't remember. I think it might have been with Jim Kelly's salary. His salary for the year was more than our top 12 players on offense and defense combined.
Right.
That's how we were paying, like it was still in the 70s, which didn't help it. No, though. Look at what happened with Cowher that first year. A lot, and for the next couple of years, all of a sudden we had this great team, and it was a lot of Noel's players, but Noel had those guys sitting on the bench, still letting the guys that weren't doing well, because they've been with the team for a long time, in there playing. All those guys, all those great players, the next year, next couple of years, they were sitting on a bench. They were backups, and when they would play in a game and they'd be used, they were phenomenal. And I'd be one of the people scratching their heads. Why the hell aren't they playing? Why aren't they playing Neil O'Donnell as a starting quarterback? Why aren't they putting in this guy as wide receiver? What was it? I'm trying to think what his name was. Green, the tight end, not the linebacker. There's another green that we had that was really good. And why weren't they playing? And Noel was just in those old ways of loyal to those guys that were with them. and he just wasn't able to change with the time. I don't think that with Belichick, there's any loyalty there. I think the fact is now he doesn't have the talent, and Tom Brady was a guy who had a awful lot of talent, and he was a guy who worked. And whether you like the guy or not, the guy busted his ass more probably than any other quarterback, and he did that to be a starter in grade school, high school, college. He worked his tail off, to understand everything and to play at his best, because he always had to compete. He wasn't like Michael Vick that could just walk in there and start running and throwing the ball, and all of a sudden, you get something going. I mean, Brady was his work ethic and to exercise, to knowing the game, to what he ate and everything. He was extreme at that, and that has a great amount to do with his success and why he played at a good level as long as he did.
Right.
I mean, he lasted, and let's face it, he probably still could be playing and play, not maybe be the best guy out there, but he could be one that probably still be a top 10 quarterback in the league right now if he was still playing.
Yeah, and those are all the rumors that are flying too. Is Tom Brady coming back? Like, no, he's not coming back. They're like, hey, maybe he'll come back to the Jets, and like, no, he's not coming back. Don't worry about that. So
yeah, I mean, he had that great opportunity down in Tampa. They just needed some offense, and
right.
He just walked into that's what they needed. Without him and Gronkowski, there's no Super Bowl that year.
Right.
They even started off kind of iffy. It took them a while. I didn't even think the first 5-6 games that they were even going to make it into the playoffs, because it was out of sync.
They were looking rough,
wasn't playing well, and he had some bad games where he threw a bunch of picks and that, but they got it together late in the season. And of course, well,
when you go into retirement mode, I mean, most of these players, they go into full retirement mode. Like, they're ready to retire like the day after, as they say, I'm done. They're not still working out in the gym. They're still not, going out in the field and throwing the ball around. They're relaxing. They're playing golf. They're doing whatever. You know what I mean? So yeah, it might take you a little while longer to snap back from that and come back and get into game shape. But, eventually that happened. But,
Jerome Bettis looks like he's still playing at Notre Dame. If you see him, he's thin and trim. Looks like he's in the shape he was back in college.
Yeah, except for he's limping everywhere he goes.
I expected he was going to put on weight. Who surprised me, and I don't know if you watched any of the. I can't remember if it was XFL or USFL that Hines Ward coached one of the teams. Did you see the big belly he's got on him?
He's plumped up.
That really surprised me.
And what's funny is the linemen usually go the other way, like the defense and offensive linemen. They usually lose all that weight because while they're playing, they try to maintain as heavy a weight as possible. So they're constantly, just getting calories in them, and they're shoving food in their body. Well, once they go back to just eating normal, all that weight just drops right off them. Well, the wide receivers and people like that are like the other way around, because they were naturally built that way and they weren't trying to put all that weight on. Well, now that they're not in retirement, and then they're not working out, they're eating a lot still, and the weight just keeps putting on them. So it's just the opposite.
Yeah, but usually you don't see a wide receiver go up like that. I mean, you see a lot of running backs will do that, but Hines Ward, I mean, it was all in the stomach though.
Right.
It just blew me away, because Hines Ward came, in my eyes, I thought that was a guy that was always going to be in shape. You know what I mean? Like, when I saw him the first game I was watching out there, and I saw this big, huge stomach on him, and I was like, because the rest of him isn't all that, but he's got that big, his face, he's got that huge, big belly on him, and it threw me off, because I just always thought that guy, to me, I thought would be saying when he's 60, he looks like he could probably go in there.
Don't play like Jerry Rice, right?
Yeah, I did. I really expected he was going to be a guy that he'd be running his sprints in the morning, and, he would be still, he just came across to me as one of those guys that would would continue to work out and stay in shape and stuff as long as he could.
No, he went the way of Terry Bradshaw is what he did. So.
Oh, Terry Bradshaw's really blimped up.
Right.
He looks like a clown. Looks like they can put a rubber nose on him in the right outfit, with the cummerbund that rolls up and hits him in the chin for comedy, I mean, he's really bulked, especially in the last last couple of years. But Hines Ward really. But I always will like Terry Bradshaw. That's probably my all-time favorite Steeler is Bradshaw. I just like
it's a good one to like. So, anyways, why don't we plug some shows of yours coming up later on October here and into November? What do you got on the docket there for people to check out?
Let me pull my phone up. Well. On Saturday, October 28th, going into Halloween, I'm at Major Stokes Bar and Restaurant out in Greensburg, Pennsylvania from 7 to 9. And then if we go into November 4th, the following Saturday, I'm at the big Cadillac Ranch out at Settlers Ridge out near Robinson Township. And I will be playing there from 8 to 11. I could get the following week on Saturday. I'm playing at the Hard Rock Cafe. I'm only doing a short set there for the Rock for Veterans benefit for the Wounded Warriors project, taking place at the Hard Rock Cafe in Station Square in Pittsburgh. There's just 3 of us playing. I'm the middle slot from 8:45 to 9:15.
Well, hopefully people come out and support that. It sounds like a good cause.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things like that going on. I'm assuming not just here, because there's something going on here where I just played last weekend.
Right.
Here in North for Sales, they're having something that day with a couple of bands. So I'm assuming there's going to be a lot to do on November 11th if you want to go see some bands and also, help donate some money to a great cause. It looks like there's going to be a handful of shows floating around, probably in every major city, not just here in Pittsburgh. And then, I got the next 2 weeks, I'm just doing Fridays. One's back at Major Stokes on November 17th in Greensburg, 7 to 9. And my first time at Fire Whistle Brewing on November 24th. On a Friday from 8 to 11, and that is in Elizabeth, PA. And the following Saturday, December the 2nd, I'm again at Cadillac Ranch out Settler Ridge near Robinson Township, in Pennsylvania. And then I got a couple weeks off and doing some stuff towards the end of the year. Who knows? There might be another show thrown in the mix of that. I do want to get into the studio here in the wintertime and finally record my 5-song EP with a few real band songs with instruments and everything, and a couple acoustic tunes that will have some percussion and stuff in it, not just pure me playing an acoustic guitar. And I think I'm going to name this one Martins and Marshalls. It's going to be some stuff with guitar, and it's going to be some things where I'm not going to be plugging into a Marshall, and I'm going to be why
would you say Marks and Martins and Marshalls?
I don't even know if I'll have to use all Marshalls.
Right.
But I have a bunch of other amplifiers nowadays, so that will, if I name it that, I'm going to have to
call it M cubed.
What's that?
I said call it M cubed. M to the 3rd power. So, all right. Well, there you go. There's plenty of chances for you to go out and catch the Big M playing acoustically. Hopefully, you can do that somewhere along the line.
There's no covers anywhere I'm playing. There's no cost to get in to see me play these next 7 weeks. Nobody's taking a cover charge. I don't even think they're taking a cover charge down at the Hard Rock that night, unless you want to reserve a table. But I do believe you'll have an opportunity to donate, and I'll be donating myself, not just by playing playing for a while. It's a short event. There's only 3 of us playing. I think the whole thing together is only about 2 hours.
Right.
So it's a short event. It's a short event.
Okay. Well, there you go. All right, then we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back with our special guest, Dustin Pari from Ghost Hunters. Stay tuned.
Blabberbrains.
Hey, anything?
It was amazing. Like Tango and I heard a piano playing, which is one of the claims. But then things got quiet.
Dust, if you heard these sounds, I mean, you wouldn't even know what the hell to say. I mean, it was calling out for August, and it sounds like the freaking piano. Just a ding, 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 ding.
It's just really strange.
Well, Tango and Sherry, why don't you cover the monitors?
Us 3 can all just take a seat right here on the floor. See what happens.
That's right. That's a great idea.
Triangulate, yeah. All right, do it up.
Welcome back to the Halloween episode special extravaganza of Blabberbrains show. We're happy to welcome to us right now Dustin Pari from Ghost Hunters. Let's give him a big round of applause.
Well, thank you, guys. What's up? How's it going?
All right, man. Well, look, you're covering up your signature hair with your Santa hat. I mean, granted, that's a great costume, but
thank you. Well, I like to, I kind of feel like a real life Jack Skellington, so I like to celebrate Christmas along with my Halloween.
That's a great idea. I mean, but is anybody going to know who you are without your signature?
That's true.
Hair?
I mean, I could find a visor somewhere. It's still here. That's about it.
It stays the same right underneath the hat too.
It does.
Amazing.
It really is quite remarkable for that.
Hey, thanks for joining us, Dustin. I know you got a busy schedule, and
my pleasure.
But we really appreciate having you on, especially for our Halloween spectacular extravaganza. Right, this is a fun time of year, which we thought you'd be the perfect guest to have on. You're I don't know how to best describe it. You're the best known secondary cast member.
Veteran player.
Oldest secondary. Look, you've been with Ghost Hunters since season 1, am I right? And off and on.
Yeah, season 1.5. I think I popped in. I actually watched the first half of season 1 at home, and then joined up with the guys. So
right, and you're still doing work with them, so which is fabulous.
Yeah. It's been a long time. Like Jay and I did a lecture the other night. I'm like, man, this is crazy. It's like 18, 19 years of working together. So I think Ghost Hunters is like 20 years old next year. So
wow, that's awesome. Well, like when it hit the circuit, it just took off like a rocket, right? And then somewhere in the middle there, like I think it kind of peaked and people lost their interest in those type of shows. Yeah, and it dropped off, but not for very long.
I'm thankful to say we were always kind of kept in the conversation. I think everybody was always waiting for the paranormal to just go away. Right. They're like, okay, everyone's had their thing. We've talked about it, and now it's kind of jumped the shark. But there's always an ebb and flow with these kind of things, and obviously with the dawn of reality television, the paranormal being in that focus was new, so we didn't know what to expect with it. But I definitely didn't expect to still be around doing this stuff, and I would always leave. Like I left to get married, I left when my daughter was born, so I never really was there and thinking, okay, when I come back, this will still be going on, but it would always still be there. So, and behind the scenes, we still do, local cases and things like that, and still do lectures and tours. And it's a juggling act for me because I still work a day job in healthcare. So I never left that either.
Right.
So it's been nuts, but I'm very blessed. I'm very thankful to have had all these experiences.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's one thing people don't think. They think you guys are ghost hunters 24/7, right? And all the time. And you guys have regular jobs. I mean, like, Jay has never hidden the fact that he was working for Roto-Rooter. I think he's still working for Roto-Rooter.
Yeah, he does a lot of online content and things for the company still. Right. I think he does like instructional videos or something, but he does a lot still.
All right, well, that's amazing. So, but it also keeps you very busy on an ongoing basis, both with the investigations and with, working some conferences and, these meet and greets and stuff like that. So and that pretty much fills your calendar, as well as all your motivational speaking and stuff like that, which is what you do. We'll talk a little bit about that coming up. But so you stay extremely busy, right? I mean,
Yes, I joke around that I don't sleep at all because it's definitely a blessing. October being obviously the busiest month because during the week I'm doing lectures throughout New England. The rest of the year, I'm away like every other weekend, usually twice a month. But when I'm back home, I'm working on books, working on new lectures. I started this thing called Spooky Pages, like a creepy coloring book line that's on Amazon. I'm working on a Christmas book line, and I do motivational lectures, as you mentioned. And then I've also started doing a lot of mental health work, and I've been doing mental health coloring books. And yeah, I don't rest very much, but I feel like I don't know how much time I have. I mean, none of us do. Thankfully I'm healthy, but I want to do as much as I can while I'm here. I want to try to make an impact and leave a legacy of kindness and some physical things that people can touch and see and experience and be like, oh, okay, this is what he left, so.
Yeah, and you do an amazing job with that, especially on social media, with trying to stay positive through everything, delivering a positive message. And that's tough in this day and age, right? When there's just so much, crap and so many things bringing people down. And we need more people like you who are there to at least deliver some sort of positive message. Now, whether people adhere to it or not, that's not your job, is to make sure that people accept it. It's just your job to deliver it and hope that people accept it. And but how do you stay like that up in public? Let me phrase it in a different way, right?
Sure.
Most people I know who do what you do, they're motivational speakers or they're writers. They also have people that motivate them and inspire them as well, because it's really hard to motivate and inspire yourself sometimes. So how do you stay motivated and inspired to deliver those types of messages?
A lot of my inspiration I just draw from life experience, people that I've encountered, and I'm very much into music. I find a lot of inspiration and emotion from the lyrics from certain artists, and it's and depending on what I'm going through, I find I'll start to listen to certain artists more than others. And sometimes there'll just be a little bit of a lyric or a thought that gets presented in the way it's paired musically, because some bands and artists, it's really like poetry set to song, and those moments, there's honestly, I'm never been like the bravado type. There's been times where I pull over and I will start to get like emotional. Like I will literally tear up because something just unlocks within my mind, and it's not being upset because I'm sad. A lot of times I find something so beautiful that all of a sudden I feel like there's this emotional release that goes with it, and
right.
A lot of what I look at is, I really feel like, I say in all my lectures, no matter what they are, that we're spirits going through a human experience, that we're not from here, we don't stay here. But I feel like we are here, we should be helping each other out and learning together and laughing together and crying and growing together. So a lot for me, I think, comes from those little moments of insight, these little blessings, these little bits of wisdom. I also look at a lot of stuff weird. So like sometimes just an everyday situation will pop up and I'm like, oh, that's like, in a way that could be motivational too. So I try to just take things that are commonplace for people and find a way to spin it in a way to help them. Because I feel like if you have a tangible experience, you have something you can relate to, instead of someone just saying, you can do it. Like, maybe I can't do it. Maybe today sucks. Maybe tomorrow's going to be worse,
Right.
It's like, I want to say, yeah, tomorrow's going to be better. Just stay with it. But tomorrow might suck. The next year might be difficult as hell. But the long game, like you got to stay in the game. And I think stringing together little victories is the way to keep that going. And for me, staying positive is a practice. And that's what, people will often ask, like you said, like, how do you stay motivated? Well, it's like anything else. It's like, you got to work at it. It's not just like you wake up all of a sudden, you're like, hey, I'm super happy. Life is good. It's not like that, so there's going to be ups and downs, but if you practice looking on the positive side of things and looking on the sunny side of things, you start to see that more than looking into the darkness and the negativity all the time. And, social media, unfortunately, doesn't do a hell of a lot to help that. So that's why I try to be a little ray of sunshine. Like you said, I can't drag people across the finish line, but hopefully I can give them a little something to think about.
Yeah, Mark does the same. You thought about music, Mark has recorded an EP with some acoustic music, and one of the songs on there is called "Where Stars Are Beautiful." It's about, singing by a girl, and has kind of inspired a lot of people too. And a lot of people share it. They find it a beautiful song. So you're right. Yeah. I mean, whether your inspiration is in words or if it's in music or whatever, I think it's, you catch more flies with honey, right? As they say, than with vinegar. And, so you're going to get more attention on you whenever you're being kind and you're showing love and stuff like that. So, but, and, you know, so yeah, next time you're in Pittsburgh, you'll have to go check out Mark play. He's, was just running down a list of all his, gigs that he's got coming up before the end of the year. I know that, I know T.A.P.S is in Pittsburgh quite a bit. There's a lot of paranormal hotspots around here. And, maybe
there is quite a bit.
Some,
I find Pennsylvania and Michigan to be two places that we do quite a bit, you know?
right.
And I know like even like the home teams we have in different states and everything, I know those are always very active. And then like Maine, little like off the way places that seem to have a lot of activity. But I like going to Pennsylvania quite a bit. They've always been very good to me. Michigan, Kansas. I love Kansas. Everyone's just so nice when I go there. You know, I'm a bit of I'm a fellow that loves to just kind of, I don't investigate them, but I like to just walk around old cemeteries and take pictures and read the stones and stuff. And I was in Kansas recently, and I had stopped at the side of the road to take pictures, and like it wasn't a very, you know, traveled road, and two different cars had came by, and both of them stopped to make sure I was okay. I was like, how sweet that is. Like in Rhode Island, I could be on the side of the road on fire and nobody would give a damn. Like they'd be mad. They'd be mad at you for causing them traffic, you know?
Right.
So I'm very blessed to have met so many cool people across the place. But yeah, there's certain states that seem to kind of just lend themselves to my experience, I think.
You think that might have something to do with how old the states are? I mean, there's been stuff happening in Pennsylvania for a long time. You know, and then even with some fighting with their, you know, back in the 1700s, and you had people being killed in battles and things like that, you know, which are a lot different than maybe other parts of the country that were discovered much later than, say, here in PA.
Yeah, for sure. You know, I mean, being from New England, I think I was kind of blessed with that experience because, like you said, I mean, Pennsylvania, the early colonies, you know, the early settlers, and then obviously Gettysburg and everything happening there. There's a lot of emotion that kind of stains the environment after these kind of things play out. You know, so within America, there's many places that are, you know, in some ways older than others, but there's always, you know, natives and things that were here before colonization as well. So we have to look for that. But yeah, certain areas are just more populated and have more of a rich history in terms of colonization or just people living there in general. But I know, like even down in Florida, you know, in the southern parts of Florida, we have a lot with the Spanish and such that were settling in there. So there's certain places that just seem to be more of a hotbed of activity. And I think, yeah, it definitely has to do with the amount of people that were there and the times that were there. And then filming the international show for 2 years and being to all those countries over in Europe, you know, there was so much going on. So one of the things I really enjoy about the paranormal is the sociological aspect of it, meeting new people, learning about their culture, learning about their religions, their customs, their spirituality, and then just the history of the settlements and the things that happen to these places. I want to say it's really more about the other things than it is about the ghosts for me. As much as I love the spiritual side of it, you don't always have a spiritual encounter, but you can always be aware and learn about your environment.
And then, yeah, I think that's why we're places of tragedy seem to retain that energy or those spirits or whatever, you know, like Gettysburg, like you're saying, a lot of times these lighthouses or forts. You guys have investigated a lot of forts that, you know, that are extremely haunted. So, is there a rhyme or reason to that? Like, you know, like, I know we don't know what's going on in the afterlife, why some people are lingering, and, you know, there's the whole theory of sometimes they don't know they're dead yet and they haven't moved on, or there's like an instant, you know, tragedy that they died instantly. And so, you know, what has been your experience to say of, you know, why you think these beings are lingering around? That isn't like residual energy, you know, that's intelligent.
Right. Yeah, separating the classifications, obviously, from residual energy that's just kind of like staying in the environment and playing out versus an actual intelligent spirit or a soul that may be there. And, again, speaking from my own personal experience, my own understandings, we don't all have to sing from the same hymnal. We don't all have to get along, but we should respect each other's ideas. For me, I don't subscribe to the they don't know they're dead theory. I just kind of feel like you haven't had to go to work for a while. You haven't had to pay any bills. Your libido life has been very in the toilet. You also haven't gone to the toilet. You've probably realized some things have been different. Right. But I do think that some linger a little bit longer than others. I mean, I know if something happened to me tomorrow, I'd want to keep an eye on my family, see how my daughter's developing, how she's growing and making her way into the world, make sure that my wife's okay. So yeah, I think that there's very logical reasons why spirits would want to choose to stay around a little longer, But I also believe that heaven or the afterlife or however you want to see it, isn't as far away as we think it is. So I think a lot of what we see is kind of either bleed over of the spiritual realm or purposeful visitation. And right. I think that sometimes we're seeing a little bit of both. And yeah, we don't know all the answers to it for sure. But I think places where we see a concentrated amount of energy and certain things that we believe to be linked to help spirits to show themselves in terms of geological makeup or waterways or even like train yards and those things may seem to make these things easier to either perceive or for them to facilitate. And, I always caution investigators, too, with the way we approach these things, we often are so limited by our understandings or what we've read or what we've seen in movies, or what we've seen other paranormal groups do, that we just follow the same cookie cutter thing. And it's so important to get outside that box when you can, and also to think of things that may not be so obvious. Like, how are they seeing us? One of the questions I like to ask all the time is, what do we look like to you? And often the response is light. Which is interesting because how many things do we see that we see is in shadow, So there's this give and take, but, we'll have different REM pods, we'll have Flux 2 things, we have these different devices, and we're like, hey, light up the red light, light up the green. How do we know they see red? How do we know they see green?
That's weird, yeah.
So you got to establish those things. Like, okay, light up whatever you can. Okay, I see that as green, we'll use that as yes. You have to set parameters. But I just feel so when those moments happen, and I know some of them are small and people want the crazy big activity, but those small things really add up, and just because it's not as amazing as something you would read in a book or see in a movie, doesn't mean that spiritual contact is a small thing in any way. I mean, if we think about our energy, our soul, whatever it is that passes on from this life still has a way to interact with us. That's amazing. And I think that sometimes people get a little cocky about it, or they just get spoiled with it, or they forget how exciting it is the first time you see something or hear something. And hold on to those moments, because they really do add up and they mean a lot.
We talked a little bit about this in the first segment, so I exposed my pumpkin head there. Well, first of all, I have my own theory that I think would explain why some spirits remain for long periods of time, right? Maybe hundreds of years, whatever. And it's not a far-fetched theory, but, time and space is developed, I believe God made it for people, right? The spiritual realm is outside of time and space. So Absolutely. To them, passing away 100 years ago was like passing away 2 seconds ago, or maybe a week ago, or whatever. There is no time or space. So what seems like 200, 300 years for us could have been instantaneously for them, or could have been a month for them, or whatever, because there is no time or space. So, and they're not maybe necessarily lingering so much as they are just maybe it might be new to them. Who knows? Yeah. Or it might be routine for them. It might be just a comfortable place for them. We just don't know. I mean, of anything, you guys have the ability to probe the people, right, in the afterlife, and try to get responses as well. And that's the part that fascinates me. We talked about this earlier in the first segment as well, as far as the people that believe that we are just beings that when we die, there's nothing. I just think that there's a preponderance of evidence that say otherwise. That whether you believe that's just we live on as energy, or whether you believe in heaven, or whether you believe in just the spirits at Rome or whatever, there's just an overwhelming amount of evidence, and I've had a lot of my own experiences to prove that there is something after we leave this earth, and or after we're done with this our bodies here. And the other thing I find amazing, and we talked about this as well, and maybe you can back this up or add to it. I know a lot of people in the paranormal field, or they're investigators, or they're mediums, psychics, and they're Christians. Mm-hmm. And throughout their life and time of doing this stuff, you would think that they would have encountered something that if there wasn't something to it, that they would say, you know what, I've just seen enough that there's nothing there, and so I'm completely wrong. But they remain in their faith. So, I mean, how do you respond to that? Because I know you're a Christian, and I know you like a lot of your lectures, you kind of build that stuff in there. But how do you work the two between the paranormal investigations and your faith?
Sure, and that's probably one of the most common things that comes up for me. I do want to just comment on your message about time. I completely agree. Like, time is a man-made construct in the way that we understand it. I have a whole lecture called How Soon Is Now, where we talk about time and space-time, and how time is different just within levels of elevation within our own world. My buddy Mike Ricksecker, who's on a lot of different programs, he's on Ancient Aliens sometimes. He's got some amazing documentaries that he's put together, little segments about this. And I went down this rabbit hole researching time and trying to understand it, and like started to drive myself crazy. And now I've realized like how much, I mean, yeah, I'm always busy, but I feel like there's so much time that I've wasted previously that I have to catch up now. But there's no catching up, because it's a construct that we've made, yet we can't conquer, which is interesting. Right. But as a Christian, so for me, and I have a great respect for all the major world religions, however people want to worship God, goddess. I believe that the main company I like to refer to as like Hallmark had different divisions with different prophets in different lands. In a time where we did not know other countries even existed, you would take a message from someone that looked like you, somebody that spoke like you, and somebody that you could understand. So it made sense for these different lands to have different prophets and different stories. But when we put them all together, there's so many commonalities between like the flood story narrative and just the overwhelming message always of love and respect. Like, that's what it comes down to. So worship the way you want to worship, just be respectful of others. For me as a Christian, a couple of stories I always point to when people bring up the paranormal. And first off, I'm not sitting there conjuring up the dead. I'm not dealing with unclean spirits and trying to exorcise people or dealing with demons. I've been doing this 31 years, and I have a 0 demon track record. So either I'm really bad at it, or they're not as common as some people think. I do believe in angels and demons. I do believe that there is a hierarchy, however you want to call it. Maybe the nomenclature is different. But for me, I keep myself in a real positive place. I don't come across the negative as much. Even in this world, it helps to stay positive and clean. It kind of keeps the negativity away. But I always point out for my Christian brethren a couple of things. One, you have to be honest about the Bible, inspired by God, but written by man. And books that were put in the Bible at one time were really well regarded. And then all of a sudden, when Rome got involved and decided this is going to be the main religion, we're going to pick through which books we like and which books that we don't have any use for. So like a lot of the Dead Sea Scrolls I got shoved to the side were most likely written by the Essenes, who were the group that were said to be closest to Christ. And in there, they mentioned, I went to an exhibit they had in Boston, and I sat in on a lecture and everything, and it was mentioned in there that they believe heaven is just a shift away. It's not as far as we would think. And then when I started looking at that with that type of context and reading in the Bible, and we see There's the old story about Saul and the Witch of Endor, and they do some conjuring in that one. When Christ is dealing with the unclean spirit, he casts out the spirit and he says that we can do this in his name. Now, again, I don't do that type of work. The one case I did where it seemed kind of a darker nature, again, I wouldn't jump to demon. I went and had a friend of mine who was a priest that was in Rhode Island at the time, introduced the two people, went my own way. Like that was what I needed.
You're more equipped for that, yeah.
Yeah, it's like this isn't my area of specialty, so let me help you out. But when Christ is appearing walking on water, like he mentions that he's not a ghost. When he first appears after the resurrection, and Didymus, the twin, doubting Thomas, wants to put his hand in his side to see, like, is this really him? And he mentions that he is not a ghost. So there's showing difference between resurrection versus spirit activity. And I mean, how many times are there spirits in the stories? There's so many. So and so appeared to this one and gave them these messages. Angels appeared and gave them these messages. So there's so much evidence for it just within the books themselves. And then this isn't a story I used to share a lot, but I'm starting to share it more and more. I did a college lecture. I do colleges usually in the fall. And I did a college lecture in New England. And I went, and after the lecture, we usually do like a small investigation event. And it was just for this group, I think it was like 10 or 12 people, and it was their drama club that had sponsored the thing. So I went to this small little house off the side of the campus with these kids. And I was using one of the box devices and getting absolutely nothing, like just nothing coming through. And one kid was really kind of snarky and kind of like judgy and kind of hateful through the whole thing. And you just kind of feel that like bad energy, that juju, I'm just like, whatever, man. But as spirit often does, they will choose this person to kind of show themselves to or to make a comment to.
Right.
And so I told everybody, listen, like they're not responding to me. Like, let's go around and everybody ask a question. And when it gets to this kid, he like really condescendingly was like, so like, are there jobs in heaven? Like, what do you do? And I swear to you, this is as true gets. This girl's voice came through clear as day and said, hang out with Jesus Christ. And everybody looked at me like gasped. I'm like, I've never heard that name. I've never heard the name of Jesus come through in any session I've ever done. So I'm like, oh my God, like what is going on right now? And
That's
so like
awesome.
This girl was sitting next to the kid that asked the question, and she's like, what did she say? I'm like, and so I asked, I'm like, I'm sorry, could you repeat? And this girl comes back, she goes, hang out with Jesus Christ, God's son, gotta go. And then that was it. Nothing else happened. And I was like,
that's awesome.
What just happened? I remember walking out of there and calling Chip coffee. I'm like, Chip, you're not going to believe what just happened. Like, this is the craziest freaking thing. Right. And it's still one of the most like amazing moments that I had. And I'm not the best investigator. I don't record a lot of my sessions, hardly any, because I'm in it for the moment. I'm in it for the experience. Like, I ain't got time to sit around and record a bunch of things. I just like to live in the moment. And but that was when I was like, damn, I wish I recorded that because it was amazing.
That was a moment, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So are you where are you, or are you still a member of T.A.P.S, or were you just always pulled in as a friend or a guest or whatever? Or are you part of the organization?
Yeah, so I watched that first half of the season, and I was always investigating in Rhode Island and southeastern Mass just by myself or with my buddies. And investigating is a loose term. It's mostly like, and don't do this, breaking into abandoned buildings, and but that's how I started, and now I feel like I have a responsibility to tell people, don't do that. Like these buildings are dangerous. Like you can fall, you can get hurt. You're also trespassing. But that was my origin story. I saw a shadow figure as a kid. That was like my gateway ghost. And I spent years reading about these things. There was no paranormal TV. Halloween time, you'd get a special about haunted locations. And I'd get super excited. And all of a sudden one night I come home from working on the ambulance and I see ghost hunters, and I caught it like mid episode. I'm like, what are these guys doing? Like they're in people's homes looking for this stuff, and there's no cops, and no one's yelling at them. And then when I saw they were filming in Rhode Island, I like went online and I was like, oh, this is crazy. I like emailed everybody and nobody got back to me. But I'm persistent. And so I kept emailing them. I was like, I used to work for CBS and Fox News. I know how to run all your equipment. Like I know how to look through the DVR and like find things. Like I'm really interested in this. And when they finally brought me out for an interview, they're like, listen, you could be part of our home team on the T.A.P.S team, but you can't be on the show. And I was working like 3 jobs at the time anyway. I was like, that's fine. I wasn't trying to be on TV. I just want access without getting chased out. And so that's what I did for months. So I was a part of their home team. And then they brought me on a show. We did a firehouse here in Rhode Island. So I went and did that first. And then it was, here an episode, there an episode. Because again, like I was working in healthcare and I didn't want to give up my job because I thought TV is fun, but like, I'm settling down, I'm starting a family. I want something that's consistent and solid. And so that's what I did. But so I still work locally here. Cody, who's been on the show a lot, he's another home team member. So he and I would do cases here. Still a part of the crew and still get to go out and have some fun with them, both on and off TV. So.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, because I guess one of the things, like even back in the day and even still now, one of the reasons why I liked when you were on the show is because you seem to approach things a lot the same as like even like Jay or Grant were, and Steve, basically the whole team. I think you fit in well with the team because the way they approach things. It's not like, I'm not trying to bash Ghost Adventures. I watch that show all the time and stuff like that. But Zach and his crew are completely different. I mean, the way they go at things, they're a little more bombastic. They're the way they still just like yell and scream when they get evidence. I'm like, that's your job. Like, well, what are you yelling and screaming about? But you guys are just like really like it's like a job. Like you're there to do a job. You're just trying to get to the truth. You're trying to figure out what's going on. You're looking for the evidence and you think about it and it's like you're focused on it, right? And it's not like a show. It's one of the reasons why, like I said, I kind of like Ghost Hunters is because the way they approach things. Like I said, I think you fit well in with that show because you have the same technique as far as trying to just get answers for something. And I think that's much more appealing to a viewing member of the show instead of something like there are entertaining, right? If you watch Ghost Brothers, I love those guys, right? They're and their banter and stuff like that is hysterical, but they're also serious investigators, right? But they're entertaining at the same time.
Yeah.
But so outside of and I told you before we had Maddie Blake on the show, and Maddie has a paranormal podcast with Alan Arkin's son, and he also gets into a lot of other things with paranormal, like Bigfoot and UFOs and stuff like that. So outside of like the spiritual stuff and the ghost hunting, have you like dabbled in anything else paranormal, or are you just kind of stay in that lane?
Yeah, man, all the things. I like all the weird things. And I mean, to your point too about the other shows, like I always tell people, like, there doesn't need to be a faction war. Like people like different things, different levels of entertainment or different serious approaches. Like, and no one's forcing anybody to watch any of them, or you could watch all of them. You can watch whatever the hell you want, or you don't have to.
Right?
Like I like wrestling, and a lot of people are like, oh, you're a WWE guy or an AEW guy. I'm like, I watch them both. I also watch Ring of Honor, and I would also watch indie shows. Like I just like wrestling. So if you like the paranormal and you like it all, fine. If you just like one thing, that's cool too. For me, in terms of other stuff, yeah, for sure. I have done one Sasquatch investigation. I don't like to say the word hunt. I don't know. Like I'm not going to shoot anything. The term is I remember for ghosts too. It's just it is what it is. It's just the vernacular of it. But in New Mexico, I did get to go looking for Bigfoot with some of the natives there, which was amazing. Just to be amongst a full tribe and to be out there was just an amazing experience. I really enjoyed it. Didn't see anything, but to go up and get to go in this big cave and everything, it's just cool. A lot of times I take a moment and just like, this is my life. This is such a weird, wonderful life. UFOs, absolutely. I have the old teardrop alien was my first tattoo that's on my leg, and I still love aliens. But I remember as a kid, you get to the point where you get known for one thing, and you go through that phase where no one really knows you and they don't know what to buy you for holidays. All I got was alien stuff. So like alien shirts, alien mannequin heads, books about aliens. Like that's all I would get. Right. And I still love them, and I've had a couple of sightings over the years, not many, just 2, maybe 3. cool incident I had at the old Hinsdale house up in New York. I was there doing an event. My buddy Cody was there with me, and we were doing a box session, which, if you know, the lineage of the Franks box was originally invented to speak to extraterrestrials. And so we're using a box session, and people are, you know, focused on spirit, 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 ghost, ghost, ghost. And we get this voice that comes through, and it keeps calling us earthies and saying they're watching us from above. I'm like, well, this is really interesting, isn't it? Like, it's much more alien than you would think was going to come out of this investigation. But so yeah, I've got love for all the kinds of weird, creepy things. And I feel like the most important thing is, like, you need magic in this world. You know, I feel like there really is more out there than we are able to perceive, and probably for good reason. I feel like this is a spiritual training ground, so we need to go through certain things. You can't just fast forward to the end of the movie. You can't just flip to the end of the book. Like, you need to live these experiences. And that's why I try to tell people, like, when you're going through tough times, like, yeah, it sucks now, but you can't see the whole puzzle yet. Like, you got to get through these pieces, and it'll start to come together. Just sometimes the timeline's longer than we want it to be, you know? But I love all the weird stuff. And it's like, I had my little Santa Claus hat on before, and I love Santa. I really do. Like, I have a lecture just about Santa Claus himself, because real man, great story, and the magic that has come out of it, the magic of Christmas, the innocence of childhood that ties into that. And I feel like when people rob you of that innocence, and they tell you these kind of things that are against your beliefs as a child, I feel like the world gets a little darker. It gets a little smaller, you know? So when people are saying, like, you know, like, oh, ghosts don't exist, it's like, well, maybe you haven't had any experience, but I find if we change the verbiage, we change the nomenclature, I'm like, well, do you believe you have a soul? Do you believe there's an afterlife? Like, all of a sudden we'll say yes to that, but we'll say no to ghosts. I'm like, it's the same damn thing.
That doesn't make any sense, yeah.
Yeah, you know, but it's getting people past the idea that believing in a ghost is a childish and stupid thing. And it's like, no, sometimes the things that we learned innately from birth, that we didn't have quite the linguistic skills to express yet, but somehow we knew to be true, those things, those little bits of magic, are the most real things that are in this world. We just can't always perceive them. And as we get older, we get so, you know, weighed down with get up, sit in traffic, go to job, punch a clock, get the money, give the money to the IRS, give the money to the bills, and then do it again, do it again, do it again. Like, what the hell are you living for? You're missing the whole damn experience. You just punch the clock.
Letting it pass you right by. You know, I've had conversations too with people who like they don't want to know about if there's life on other planets, because they say, well, if there's life on other planets, that doesn't make us unique. And I was like, well, why doesn't it? I said, if God created the whole entire universe and he created life everywhere, but that doesn't mean that, you know, when you know, the Bible says that God made us in his image, maybe we are special. Maybe we are unique. Maybe that's why Christ was here. Maybe he wasn't on other planets. God made elephants. He made, you know, whales. He made ants. He made, you know, porcupines. Look at all these different creatures that God has made. Why wouldn't he be able to make other types of beings, other types of critters that are on other planets? But that doesn't make us not unique and not special to God. So it's again, you know, broaden your perspective on how you think about things, and it begins to say, okay, well, if I think that way, then I think I'd be fine. Yeah, I'm finding out if there was, you know, beings on other planets, because, you know, as you said, whether they're the Greys or whatever people claim to see or whatever, I don't know. But if that is the case, they don't look like humans. They're humanoids or human-ish. Right. But I think that still qualifies us as being unique.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, each one of us is a little different, right? I mean, exactly. Even identical twins have things about their personalities and stuff that aren't exactly alike, you know? Right. And why the hell do we have to be so special anyway? Like, it's okay just to be a cog in the cosmic machine. It's still pretty cool to be there.
Yes, 100%. You know, go ahead, Mark. Yeah.
It's always a perception, I think, with people, too, is they just assume if there is life somewhere else, that it wants to destroy us. Mm-hmm. You know, that's the thing. You know, how do you know if there is life somewhere else that shows up here and go, hey, what's up? You know, what do you guys do over here? You know, it's. I think that's the thing people are afraid of. They think it's going to, just because there could be life somewhere else, and all of a sudden those people want to destroy us. Yeah. Or
I mean, if we made it to their planet,
and it could be they're just people, may look different, and they just, hey, what are you doing? What's up? Hey, my name is so and so.
Yeah.
If we had the technology to make it to their planet, we wouldn't be getting there and saying, oh, okay, well, there's some place we could take over and destroy everybody, and let our people be there. So yeah.
You'd like to think that, but it depends.
Right, like to think that. Right, that doesn't mean that's the case. We just don't know. It's just the unknown.
Right.
I know a long time ago that we've sent signals out there hoping that because if there's computers elsewhere, it has to be derived to the same sort of system and series of lines and dots or whatever it is. And I know obviously things can travel. We've never received anything back that I'm aware of.
No, we have recently.
Like somewhere else, maybe it's way underdeveloped from us. They could still be back in a infancy of rubbing two rocks together, to try to create fire.
SETI actually has received frequencies back from deep space.
But it would have to be, they should be able to decode, if they were as advanced as us or more advanced, if we're sending things out like it, they should be able to actually understand it to be able to send it back, is I guess what people are thinking, who I don't know who the experts are who actually have done that, is send that out there, but I know that they have a very long time ago. But with light years and how far away, who knows how long it would take the signal to get there, and then for it to be received, and being if they're as advanced as us or more advanced, they'd be able to take those series of dots and lines or whatever it is and communicate back. It could be hundreds of years.
Oh, you look like you're ready to go now, Mark. So we can just launch you out into space, and you can get some answers for us. What do you think?
I'm just hey, if they show up, I'll eat pizza with them. They got to chip in, put their pay in there. But I don't know. I just can't assume that people if there's life somewhere else, that it has to be that they're violent and they want to create harm to everyone else. Yeah. We're not that way.
I think that's
among ourselves, maybe, but
like within the paranormal thing too. It's like a Hollywood perception, right? Like, how many alien movies can you think of? There's quite a bit. How many where they're friendly and they just want to hang out? Not nearly as many. They're always threatening or blowing stuff up, or at war or fighting. I like to like Mac and Me, where they're just running around and like doing weird things. Like, just give me happy aliens, like goofy happy aliens. That'd be fine.
That's what made the movie and the TV show Alien Nation kind of cool. You know what I mean? Because it was just them commingling and kind of merging with us and everything. So,
do you remember the old movie from the 80s, Enemy Mine?
Yeah.
Yeah, like that was a great movie. Like, they had their own good and bad aliens and like their own thing going on too. It's just they're from a different place. So I don't know.
I think eventually we'll find out. We may find out in our lifetime. Who knows?
We're getting closer. We're getting closer.
Yeah, we are. People
all the time.
They're finally starting to release some evidence, at least that they've been sitting on. So who knows? Maybe eventually we'll get to that. But
right when they need a really big distraction, they'll wheel one out to say hello.
Right. So what?
I'm ready to go up there and investigate it. I got the outfit and everything here.
That's it. All you need is
ready to go off into space.
Some astronaut ice cream, and you're gone.
What do you got coming up next there, Dustin? Where are you going to be speaking at, or what kind of gatherings do you got in the near future?
Yeah, we've got a couple more library lectures coming up. I'm going to Kalamazoo, Michigan, to do one in person. I'm going to Wisconsin. I've got I started this new type of investigation called Spirit Quest. It's Spirit Quest with Dustin Pari is the full title. And they're limited to 15 people only. And so I have one that's coming up in the Lehigh Valley area of Pennsylvania. And it's at the old George Taylor House, which is a historic place, beautiful building. We did it on the recent season of Ghost Hunters. And so Spirit Quest is different. It's low tech, only 15 people, no matter what the location is. And we look more at our own spirituality, our own ability to communicate, some of the older ways of spiritualism communication, like not just knocks and bangs, but we try to get into, depending on which location it is, I try to find something unique to it. Recently we did one where we just went outside because there was a historic cemetery there that we had permission to be in, and it didn't do any investigation there, but just walked barefoot and kind of grounded ourselves. It was beautiful. It was a full moon and just had like a nice, quiet, spiritual moment, and just kind of exercising the spirit inside us, and then coming back into the home and investigating and trying to communicate. I really believe in like a lot of things like sound and resonation and just what our intention is, and kind of letting our light shine out into the darkness as we see it, instead of just always relying on talking boxes and blinking lights, and there's a place for those things. But with Spirit Quest, I'm trying to get people to realize that we are stronger than we have been led to believe. We've forgotten a lot of what the things are that we can do. And so Spirit Quest is that kind of thing. So the next one's going to be in Lehigh Valley. I think it's November 11th. So that's going to be really cool. So if anybody's interested, everything's just on my website, which is just dustinpari.com.
So your whole, I guess, tour, or whatever you want to call it, of events are on the website. How about social media? Where do you want people to hook up with you on social media?
If it's Twitter, if it's Facebook, if it's Instagram, if it's TikTok, everything's always just at Dustin Pari. Pretty simple. DustinPari.com is where everything is. All the links to my books, everything you can get through Amazon, but you can find everything on my website. I have a YouTube series called Hey, Get a Minute. It's like little motivational minute-long videos. So those are a lot of fun. We have a new series of those that'll be coming out. And then I do this thing on Patreon. It's also patreon.com/Dustin Pari. It's called Monsters, Motivation, and Mayhem. So you get a little bit of all my parts of my personality. But the thing I'm most proud on is it's just at the base plan of $5 a month, because I want everyone to have access. We have something called the Acolytes of Kindness Project. And every week I have a kindness challenge that I put online for people to go do, like within their neighborhood, within their communities. Make baked goods for a neighbor, help an elderly neighbor, go to the cemetery and put flags up on the veterans things. Just personal things that I think we can make a difference by doing small things, but all over the place. So I'm really happy to do that. Then we have like a monthly meeting online on Zoom and everything. So that's my Patreon page. But just, yeah, man, I'm just out there trying to do my best. I've been very blessed to have, a nice little platform. I know I was always kind of like a secondary or tertiary investigator, because I always kind of came and went on the show. But almost 2 decades. I'm very blessed to have done it. I've seen 27 countries. I've met thousands and thousands of people, and it's never lost upon me how important those moments are. We talked about time briefly earlier. We've been led to believe the most valuable thing in this world is money, but the most valuable thing is time. Because in order to get money, you have to trade your time doing a job that hopefully you don't hate, but you trade your time for that. And no matter how much money you make, you can never buy that time back. So anytime somebody comes to one of my events and spends time with me, or even writes to me online, those things matter. And without this type of interaction, I couldn't do the kind of things I like to do. And the thing I like to do most is try to help others through this human experience. So that's what I am focused on.
It's awesome. And I hope if you come back to Pittsburgh sometime, I met you back in 2014. That was a while ago. And yeah. I'm sorry, that was, you probably don't remember because you've been in so many cities, but that was not a really good event. There was like 5 people. Pittsburgh is really lame when it comes to these things.
These things happen sometimes, man.
It was a horrible. I felt really bad for you. I'm like, where is everybody? You've got to be kidding me. There's like 5 people. Maybe give it another shot. I can't promise you it's going to be any better. Because
that's all right, man. I always think of it this way. Sometimes it's not the size of the crowd that shows up. It's the intention and the moments between the people that are there. And, maybe if there was 30 or 40 people there, we wouldn't have had the same interactions and such. Everything's always different based upon the energy of the people that are there. And so, I'll just share this with you. A church I used to go to, I went there once. I was late for mass. He used to do a Wednesday night mass, and I got there late, and I walked in and nobody was there. And he was halfway through the second reading, and I thought, is he really doing the whole mass with nobody here? And so I sat in the back, I waited, went through the whole thing, and after everything was done, I asked him, I said, do you conduct the massive if no one shows? They said, yeah. He said, because I just feel like, there may be spirits that might be present and they want to listen, or I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do. And if people come in, then people come in. And if they don't, they don't. And I was like, what a beautiful thing, And so that's something I try to keep in mind. Some of the library lectures are at capacity. Some of them have, 10 people. But it doesn't make anything less significant just because it's not a packed house.
Yeah, on a weirder side note, Mark and I some years ago went to go see the band Firehouse perform out in Ohio, Phantom Fireworks, and it was pouring down rain. There was like 30 people showed up for the show. It was pretty pathetic, and they played the whole. They didn't skimp. CJ Snare, the singer, was not feeling well, but he's like, hey, we're gonna make this like this is like a backyard party or something like that, and they put on a full show. They still performed exactly the same. They didn't mail it in. And, that's a great attitude to have, is because, again, especially what you're doing, if you're going to impact just one person at one of your lectures or speeches or meetings, I mean, what is that worth to you? You know what I mean? That's worth the world. If you've impacted and changed one person's life because of something you said, that means something to them. So, yeah, do exactly the same for 5 people as you would for 500 people. Right?
Absolutely, man. And it's, it's weird. Like, I'm thankful to say I know I have made a difference in some people's lives in a very serious way, not just entertaining them with stories of spirits and those kind of things, but helping people with their own mental health. And some people that unfortunately, were in a place where they felt that they didn't want to be here anymore. And I wish it was just a one-off. I wish that it never happened. I wish that I never came across somebody that felt that way. But I'm thankful that I know I've been able to make a little difference for some of those people. And it's interesting. Like, you never know what you're going to get in your social media. But I received a message the other day. It was a cameo that was sent to me from one of my favorite wrestlers. And I was just excited. I'm like, oh, this is great. And the guy starts off like doing the gimmick and everything. And he's like, the person that sent this to you because you helped them at one of their lowest points where they were considering suicide and they didn't know how to thank you and they wanted to send this. And I'm sitting there watching this thing. I was so excited about my favorite wrestler. And now I'm like almost in tears because I'm like, oh my God, like it's just so like those moments, like, and like you said, you don't know who's in the audience. You don't know who's listening. Every email I might answer or some weird little tweet or something. And it's good for all of us. You don't need to be on some stupid reality show to make a difference. All of us have that ability every damn day when we go out into society or we choose to sit in front of our keyboard and respond to somebody. You could always choose kindness and it never hurts and it's never wasted, even if you don't see the impact.
100%. So hopefully, those of you watching this show, go out and check out Dustin's stuff. Maybe you'll get inspired and as well, and maybe you want to go check him out in person. He also an author. You got books out there. Somewhere along the line, hopefully you'll dig his stuff and follow him on social media. It's always got a positive message to say. Maybe a big deal for the day or whatever. So really appreciate having you on, Dustin. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank
and so for the cosmonaut Big M over there, I am Pumpkinhead Michael Kadrie. We will see you guys next time on Blabber Show. Happy Halloween, everybody.